Welcome to another segment of ACRP TV. Today, our spotlight is on expanding diversity in clinical trials, a very important topic. We've got a good guest with us today. Scott Gray is the CEO of Clincierge. Scott, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Happy to be with you this morning, Michael.
Now, you and I have talked a bit in the past, and let's talk about, this is one of those, seems like, I hate the term no-brainer, but it's so obvious that we need to improve diversity in clinical trials for so many reasons, ethically, morally, commercially. It makes better science. But if you could talk about why it is so important to do a better job in this area.
Well, funny that you talk about it being a no-brainer. When the client asked the question about how to improve their clinical trial performance, it was like, what do you mean? You keep doing this the same way and getting the same outcomes. So that's a bit of insanity. So speaking to the question about ethically, there's an ethical imperative to include patients of all ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic status, genders, ages, etc., so that everyone has equal access to new treatments and cures. And in the past, 60 to 70% of clinical trial participants have been white males because they are the ones who could afford the travel and time off of work to participate. The current industry thinking in terms of diversity reflects the larger culture. No one should be excluded from clinical trials due to their demographics or socioeconomic status, given the underprivileged, the unserved markets. And there have even been comments from the FDA that if XYZ Pharma tests a product on 60-year-old bald white guys, then we'll approve that product for 60-year-old bald white guys. And you're going to have to do studies broader for us to approve it in a broader population. And we know the impact scientifically, because the different genetics across the population could mean that that treatment affects a different population differently. It has to be tested. It's relevant. Commercially, and I just mentioned that in the FDA comment, if it's only approved for a small market, the company is not going to be able to recover their R&D investment.
It's so clear. It's nice to hear you articulate it this way. Let's talk, based on some of your experience, talk about maybe some practical methods to help overcome these barriers to participation. There are a lot of reasons some of our previous efforts in diversity have not been working particularly well, not necessarily for lack of effort, but talk about ways you see maybe to improve this.
Well, one of the first conferences that I attended about patient centricity and gaining access to patients. And the presenter before my discussion spoke about creating, we build websites. Well, you've got, at that point, only 55% of the global population had access to the internet. So websites aren't going to get it. So there has to be a way of educating the potential patients through the community centers or the doctors who are meeting with people, getting the information out and educating the demographic groups of poor and minorities, et cetera, community leaders, et cetera. Then you need to be able to, in overcoming barriers of participation and retention, make sure that the patients are supported. Are there travel logistics? Are there expenses that the patient must incur that they can't afford to do, or travel logistics they have no knowledge of how to coordinate? And waiting for reimbursement could be a burden, extreme burden that prevents them from even signing up to participate. So part of the solution is creating a staff of people who can work directly with the patients. And with Clincierge, we call them our Clincierge coordinators.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about how trial coordinators maybe can instill trust and help spread the mission, the gospel, if you will, of clinical trials and how important they are for everyone.
Yeah, the way we found to help our clients, the sponsors and biotechs that are doing genetic development, is to deploy a staff. We have a staff deployed around the globe wherever the patient population resides. So they're in the patient's time zone, they speak their language, they have understanding of their cultural nuances, and they work as the bridge between the patient's family, and the site to coordinate each visit or in many cases for rare diseases, family relocations for a certain duration so that a family member can participate in a rare disease trials. And our coordinators they are the stable person who the patients trust, who will have their back, get the logistics done, make sure that they get their travel completed, their ground transport, and that they don't have any out-of-pocket expenses because the sponsor has seen the benefit of funding that through us so that we can prepay all those expenses.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's about making it easy and inclusion. This is great. This has been our ACRP TV spotlight on expanding diversity in clinical trials. We've been speaking with Scott Gray, the CEO of Clincierge. Scott, thank you so much for your time today.
A pleasure to be with you, Michael.